All right, that sound means it is time for our webinar today. I'm so excited about this one. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Zoom here today with me. My name is Tiffany Palino, and I am the manager of pre-nursing and continuing education services, and I am a tutor here at Archer. And I am so excited to bring today's webinar to you all about building a resume. Now, I know how important it is to have that first resume, that first nursing job, and maybe you just don't know where to start. So, as a new graduate, I just want to remind you that stepping out into this professional world can both be thrilling and daunting. But fear not, because I'm here to tell you all the right tools that can help make your first impression the best impression and help you get that first nursing job. So, I want to know from those of you who are on right now, what part of your resume worries you the most? Let's dive into that. I want to take a moment, think to yourself, what worries you the most about this resume writing? Any thoughts? You can type it in the chat or type it in the comments. It's okay if there's nothing. So for me, I really didn't know. Hello, everyone. I really didn't know where to start, right? I didn't know kind of what to write. Like I knew my name had to be on there. I knew some credentials, but I didn't really know what that meant. But I want to just tell you how important it is to make that first impression because this is really your first chance to show your employer who you are. And it's normal to feel a little anxious or a little bit nervous. So each section is going to showcase your unique skills and your experiences. So, some worries that some people are saying, writing previous job descriptions. Yes, a gap in experience. That can be something that some recruiters might look at, but there's probably a reason why there is a gap, right? So as we're moving forward in today's webinar, I want you to think about those things and hopefully I'll help answer those questions. Oh, what skills to put? Yes. That's a great point too. So don't worry, I have an example and we'll be able to get into all of these. Okay, perfect. So think about those and we're going to come back to them. So there are four steps that I'm going to go through to help you master writing your first resume. Let's dive into those. So the first one is understanding the recruiter. So your recruiter is the first person who's really going to look at the resume. And it's essential to think about what they're looking for when they scan your resume because believe me, they don't spend very long on each person's resume. And so this will give you an advantage if we can kind of understand what the recruiter's looking for. Number two is formatting. So there's so many different types of formats out there. There's really, really fancy to really, really simple. Whatever you choose, we want it to stand out. We want to include the relevant stuff and anything that adds value, not nothing extra, I guess I should say. Then we want to make sure the content is there, right? Exactly what you need to put. And then we want to customize it to who you are. So use the colors that represent you. Highlight the skills and experiences that are specific to you as an individual. And when you do this, it's going to show the employer that you're serious about the position, that you've taken time to match your resume to their needs, because you really want to make sure that you're tailoring the resume to whatever the job description is. Now, finally, we're going to talk about formatting, making sure it's clean and simple, but it's easy to read. Okay. So, first impressions, I keep talking about this, but they really do matter. And your resume is going to be the first impression, even before they meet you. So, when we focus on understanding the recruiter, the formatting, the content, and then how to customize it to be specific to you, that's going to be the perfect resume. So, I'm going to break down these in each slide, okay? We're going to break them down a little bit together. So I think this understanding the recruiter was kind of challenging for me to understand because I was shocked to see that they really spend 6 to 10 seconds on a resume. typically. That means they're doing a glance, right? And they're looking for keywords and phrases, and they're just making sure that that first impression is strong. They're focusing on the fact, is this person a right fit for this job or this company? And they're looking that to make sure that the role is a good fit. Not necessarily the length. I will get into that because many people always ask, how long should my resume be? For a new grad, I am going to recommend about a page, okay? Try not to go longer than that, but some of you may have more experience that you might need to. They look for clarity, words, and professionalism. So things like keywords in the job description should be the keywords in your resume. They should be naturally in your resume. So if the job description is talking about organizational skills, then somewhere in your resume, you should have something about organizational skills. This will increase your chances of standing out, which is exactly what we want. You want to emphasize the fit for role over length of resume, like I said. So if you're fit for the role, you should be able to put it on one page, maybe two if you absolutely have to, but you want to emphasize those keywords and phrases. And then in the job description, you should really be doing a lot of research before you are submitting your resume to any job to make sure that that recruiter is spending those 6 to 10 seconds on your resume and it's standing out. So that's understanding the recruiter. They have typically have the job description on one side and your resume on the other, and they're kind of comparing. Now, talking about structure and formatting. If you look on the left here, I have included exactly what you should have. You should have your contact info first, right? Your name, your email, and then maybe a LinkedIn link. Recruiters tend to like that because then they can click on that, they can see real time what's going on. Professional summary, this is kind of your blurb about yourself. But remember to keep it simple, okay? Education would be next, and you want to put the most recent education first. And if you're about to graduate, you can put on their anticipated graduation date. Clinical experience. So this can include a job you've had and clinical hours because many of you, if you're in school still, you have clinical hours. But if you also work as a student nurse somewhere or a tech or something, you can also include this in the clinical experience section. Then skills, which some of you are saying you don't know which ones to put. So don't worry, I'll show you some examples. And then certification. So certifications under here is where you're going to put that nursing license and the expected NCLEX date if you have not taken it yet. But if you already have your RN or your LPN, you're going to put the expiration date on there and when you first got it and what state. Here, and you want to avoid fancy boxes. Now, sometimes we have these beautiful resumes that sometimes include your picture at the top corner. Recruiters do like that because they want to see who is applying. But I'm talking those fancy ones with like these elaborate pictures and boxes and writing. That you want to avoid that because you want this one page to kind of stand out. So think about keeping it simple and clear and easy to find all of these things. Back to your professional summary, make sure it's concise, okay? It's really, really just to the point. And then no distractions, okay? So you want to be consistent too. That's this other part of this is you want to be consistent. So your font should be the same throughout, right? It should be the same throughout. So if you chose Times New Roman, it's going to be the same throughout the whole thing. Maybe you bold certain things, you underline certain things, you italicize certain things, but be sure to keep it all consistent. And then the font size is also important. You want it to be legible, but you also want it to stand out. So remember, well-structured can make all the difference, especially in those 6 to 10 seconds that that recruiter is looking at that. So I have a brief sample resume here of kind of what I'm talking about. So where it says AJ up here, you might have a picture there instead of yourself, which is fine. So your name here, that you're a new graduate, registered nurse. Here is the little blurb or the professional experience, or sorry, the professional personal sentence, sorry. Here you're going to put your contact information, then the education is here, some skills are here. Professional experience, so that's kind of clinical experience, right? You can label that clinical experience instead. Licenses and certifications, and then references. So you can include references on your resume, but if you are over that one page, I would opt to leave those out. So I'm going to break this down even further. Again, this is just one sample. There are many different ways you can kind of lay out your resume, but kind of just keep all of these things in mind. The content. So the content needs to be strong. Every word counts. So just like when you're writing a paper in school, we want to make sure it stays in the same tense, right? So collaborated, assessed, educated, those are all action verbs, but they're in the past tense because that is something you did, especially if you did it in clinical or you did it in your job. And these convey your experiences powerfully. These words help paint that picture of your contributions and achievements at clinical or at your job. So make sure you're using kind of those stronger words. When detailing your clinical rotations, you want to tie them into patient outcomes. So, what does that mean? That means that we want to show how your work has impacted the relevance, or sorry, your clinical experience has impacted the relevant of your work. So, if you are putting in there that you assisted clients or assessed clients in triage in the ER during your rotation, and you're applying to the ER, that is something they're looking for. They want to make sure you have prompt assessment skills. And then you want to highlight transferable skills, this third bullet point, teamwork, communication, and prioritization. Nursing is all about teamwork. So if you highlight this in your resume, it's going to stand out. You need teamwork and communication and prioritization to be a good nurse. So you want to make sure you include that in your resume. Finally, if you've used any technology skills, so EMR systems, which is your electronical medical record, simulation lab. So many of you in school, right? You probably had a simulation lab. So write that experience there. Say that you're proficient in simulation. And especially nowadays, right? It's 2025. You're probably going to go through some of this in your new grad residency programs where you might go through some simulation. So if you already have experience in that, then that stands out. So remember, strong content, make every word count. So I'm going to highlight that sample resume I showed you. A couple things. So in that first statement, seamless teamwork was added, which stands out. Executed, assisted, educated. All of those things are what they're looking for. So strong action verbs like that. And remember to include that teamwork, communication, and strong prioritization skills. Any questions so far? Are you all with me? Okay. So next is that keywords and customization. So to each role. I did mention this in the beginning. So if you're applying to a new grad residency program, and maybe your residency program is the type that it rotates you through many different units, you can mention something like you are adaptive and willing to try new things, something like that. But you want to tailor to each role. So, something I also recommend is creating one resume, okay? A master resume, we'll call it. And then you can change a few things or edit a few things depending on what job you're applying to. And this will save you time. So, if you use, whatever form of saving your documents, a Google document or something like that, feel free to save it, have a master copy, and then maybe you're going to edit it a little bit for this one job. And let's say you're applying to 5 different ones. You're going to edit it just a little bit based on the job description, but you're still going to have your master. It's going to save you time, like I said. Um, and keywords. Okay, next is keywords. So I mentioned a bunch in the last couple slides, but also let's not forget patient-centered care, using evidence-based practice, collaboration, quality improvement. All of these things are what they're looking for. They want to make sure that you are utilizing the keywords that are in their job description, but also that you've used this in school or that you were patient-centered and used evidence-based practice when you were working on your job or at school in clinical. So remember, we want to stand out. And then and so let me give an example. Instead of something like generic, like I helped the patients to the bathroom, you want to say something stronger. Assessed and educated 5 to 7 patients daily on medication safety and care plans while at clinical. Do you see how that sounds a little better? Instead of I helped patients at the hospital versus assessed and educated, then you give a specific number, 5 to 7 patients every day for about medication safety, about care plans, and you can also add in their family involvement as well. So this not only demonstrates that you are competent, but it also shows that you are able to do these things, especially that you are able to do them in clinical. Remember, I keep emphasizing this, but a well-targeted resume makes a significant difference. So make sure you're targeting it to the audience that's going to read it. So let me point out some more keywords here that were in this sample resume. Strong assessment skills, patient advocacy, back to that seamless teamwork. And then assisted in triage and vital signs in the morning in the emergency department, reducing patient wait times by 15%. That is something that Archer Jackson did as a student nurse intern at the hospital in the ED. And you know what? As a recruiter and as a manager, if I'm reading that, I'm like, wow, okay, they're efficient. They have their time managed. This is great. Okay, I next want to point out some common mistakes that I need you all to avoid. Let's dive into these. Typos and grammatical errors. There are so many resources out there now that you can double check, triple check, quadruple check your work before submitting it, right? There's Grammarly, there's just Microsoft Word, there's all sorts of things. You can run this through any of those things to make sure you're not making spelling errors. Another suggestion, have someone else look at it. Make sure, have someone else read it over before you submit it. Make sure it's all typed correctly. I don't want you to list every single class you've ever taken. So, anyone who's reading your resume knows that you've graduated a program, and most nursing programs have quite similar stuff, right? We all take the same classes in a sense, med surg, pediatrics, maternity. And then our leadership courses. And then if you've gotten your BSN, you have a couple extra writing courses and evidence-based courses and so on. I would only want to list those if those are related to whatever job you're applying to. But I really don't think you need to write every single thing. Focus instead on what's relevant. So I say this to students all the time. If you're applying to a pediatric unit, and you want to tailor your resume to be pediatrics. If you did a nannying job at some point, if you volunteered with children at some point, these are all the things you should be including because they should be specific to the role that you're applying for. And then no professional summary or one that is too generic. So if you forget to put this professional summary or you just didn't put one, or you put just something that's generic that's not really to you, they're just going to kind of brush that by. So imagine your summary has to be as captivating as any introduction of any book you've ever read. This needs to grab the attention of the reader and it needs to be unique. So be sure to put things in there that are going to be something that you're proud of and that's going to help you stand out. So remember, well crafted. This resume is going to be beautiful, well crafted, and it's going to be the most powerful tool in your journey as a professional nurse because it's the first impression. I know I keep saying this, but you know what I mean. So let me point out a couple things here. So I talked about education. So if you see here, you can list your GPA, especially if it's over 3.5 to 4. That would be excellent to include. That shows you have that strong education, that strong GPA. If you haven't graduated yet, you can put that anticipated graduation date. Some of those key skills. So remember communication, emergency triage. This person had emergency triage, patient education, EHR documentation, team collaboration. Maybe specifically you could list which EHR you're familiar with, Epic, Cerner, Meditech, so on. And then if you notice here, the clinical placements that were listed, only a few were listed here, not every single one. So kind of up to you how you want to tailor that. So again, here's the whole resume, kind of from beginning to end, just a little blurb, which is going to be that summary. Then you want to put your professional experiences, your licenses, references, only if they fit, okay? And then you want to have your contact information on the side here, and then your education and your key skills. This is again just an example. You can tailor it to you. Maybe you don't have any professional experience. I'm sure there's someone out there that doesn't have any professional experience, meaning they don't have a job. This job will be your first job. Then I want you to list all your clinical experience and maybe put a little bit of a description under one of them that is going to stand out. So again, I'm going to give that pediatric example. If you want to go to a pediatrics unit, then you want to highlight your pediatric rotation. I would probably ask my pediatric clinical instructor to be my reference. I would ask my pediatric instructor to be my reference. You really want to tailor it to your job that you're applying for. Okay, I have a few more tips for you all. So, what about cover letters, Tiffany? What about cover letters? So, you have to write cover letters. These are your CV, if you see them when you're applying for your job. Cover letters tell your why for nursing. So, remember, we all remember our why, or I want you to think about your why. If you don't have a why yet, think about it. For me, my grandparents were ill with cancer, and I helped take care of them. I wasn't a nurse yet. I was quite young. And I just loved watching the nurses take care of them. And I was like, you know what? This is what I want to do. I want to take care of loved ones. I want to help them. And that was my why for helping people, right? That's my why. So I want to make sure I highlight that in my cover letter. And you want to make sure you highlight why you chose this path. Now, I want you to think beyond the dollar sign, okay? Beyond money. I want you to think more about taking care of others. Next, I want you to follow your instructions carefully. This is what I mean by application instructions. It might seem simple, but when you skip a step, it could cost you an opportunity. That's why bullet point number 3, I want you to keep track of application dates, statuses, and follow-up. So if the application is due on November 1st, you want to try to hand it in before that, right? And remember, you can always follow up and ask the recruiter, is there anything else I need? Make sure you're applying to the right position. And then I want you finally to practice introducing yourself with one line. This seems hard, but I want you to think about if someone says, tell me about yourself, this is that one line that I want you to think about. I am a nursing graduate who is looking to work on a pediatric unit, and my passion lies in children. I've really enjoyed that rotation in school, and I just think I would really excel on your unit. And or you can add a little blurb about yourself. So maybe you have an experience in your life which made you want to work on that type of unit. Add something there, okay? But just be thinking to yourself, what is that one line or that one blurb about yourself that you want these recruiters and managers to know about you? You want to stand out. So this is what I'm talking about when you're talking about the interview process. So these steps, these ones beyond the application, beyond the resume, are just one piece of the puzzle, right? So you're going to write your resume, you're going to submit your application, and then you're going to hopefully follow up with recruiters and nurse managers, and then you're going to look forward to hearing back and get that job interview. But remember, your resume is your first impression. It's going to reflect who you are and why you should be chosen for that job. So, what are these key takeaways? What are my key takeaways? You want to be clear, concise, action oriented, and you want to tailor it to the job that you want. So your resume should be easy to follow, easy to read, logically organized. You're going to use headings and bullet points. It's going to guide you and it's going to guide the reader through your journey. They're not going to have to guess anything about you. Then you're going to use those action verbs. So remember, achieved, implemented, led. And then you're going to tailor your resume to whatever job you're applying for. I keep giving this pediatric example, but if you also are applying for emergency department or a residency, you really just want to tailor it to whatever one you're applying to. You want to highlight those skills, those experiences, anything relevant. And then remember, keep that master resume and then kind of just tailor it a little bit each way to whatever job you're applying to. So I want you to leave you with one thought. A well-crafted resume not only presents your qualification, but it also tells your story in a very, very compelling way. So I hope this helped. We have a few moments left. Type any questions you may have in the chat. And I think you guys are going to write beautiful resumes and you're all going to get the jobs that you would love. We need nurses and you're all the future of nursing. All right, if there's no questions, then I will send you on your way. You're welcome, Daisha. Have a great rest of your day. Go out there and be amazing nurses. You're welcome, Nadia. And I hope to see you all soon. You're welcome, Natalie. Have a great day. Go out there and be good nurses, everyone. If you're taking the NCLEX soon, good luck. You got this. Take care, everyone. You're welcome. No problem. Take care.